Dear friends, as we all know well, Jacob of Syriac is one of the most prominent fathers of the church who contributed voluminously to the Aramaic literature as well as deepened the faith of the church. Among the innumerable themes which he developed through his works, let me select his concepts on the creation of man in God's image and likeness. Hence, the heading of the paper is Man as God's Image according to Jacob of Syriac. My paper is not a comprehensive summary of Jacob's views on the topic, but it's only an exposition. So an overview of what the great poet had narrated in a few of his major works, primarily the four memory on creation. The key line or words of his theory is from the Bible Holy Scripture, Nebed Nosho Salman of Musa. Let's make man in our image and likeness. Genesis 1:26. It has been a passionate topic of discussion among scholars of various realms before and after Jacob, and plenty of exegesis and explanations have been put forward so far by them. And among them, some of the scholars have the opinion that Adam is in the image of God in the sense that he is a reasoning, moral being with emotions and spiritual nature. Some others, like Kottayam, say that likeness of God in man consists in the erect stature of man, which symbolizes his elevation over the animals and his power to rule over them. A few of the scholars, like T.C. Bryson, think that the likeness means a direct and positive relation of community between God and man. Some others relate the image of God in man with immortality that Adam possessed before his first sin. To sum up their views, to be in the image and likeness of God implies the power to rule over all earthly creatures, and so, seemingly, even if not to create, at least to procreate living images. Some commentators of the Bible, like St. Jerome, conceive the image and likeness of God in man as an exact copy or reproduction of God. So man, as God's image, is the representative on earth. We see that early fathers, both the Greek and the Aramaic fathers of the church, were excited over the issue and they gave a mixture of explanations. The concept of image and likeness of God in man plays a very important part in the mystical theology of the Greek fathers, but many of them differ on the exact characteristic by which man reflects the divine. Clement and Origen and their disciples place the divine characteristic in man, in the soul of man, as the rational part of him. St. Gregory of Nyssa held it to consist especially in freedom from necessity, and holds the view that man is the faithful image of his Maker, principally by the reason of his soul, and more precisely because this soul possesses freedom of the will and supernatural graces. According to him, it is the purity, freedom from passion, blessedness, alienation from all evils, and all those attributes of the like-kind that help him to form the likeness of God in man. For St. Irenaeus, the image of God in man is in man's body. For St. Irenaeus, the image of God in man is man's body, which the Father's hand fashioned, and in which he breathes the soul. The likeness is the gift of spirit. Moreover, Irenaeus relates the image of God in man with the Son of God. For Clement of Alexandria, the mind of man is the image of God in him. For him, the Logos of God is the real image of God, and man is the image of the Logos, and the resemblance of man to God is something to be attained later. Among the three fathers, Mar Abrahat and Mar Ephraim, are the pioneers other than Mar Jacob among the early three fathers, who narrated very beautifully on the creation of man in the image and likeness of God. For Ephraim, the very creation of Adam in the image of God is the mysterious revelation of God, God's firstborn, who is active in creation and redemption. Now let me come to Mar Jacob's views. Mar Jacob of Salem outshines many of his predecessors and others in developing the theme of creation of man in the image and likeness of God. Etymologically, the term he regularly uses to denote the image is Salmo, and two other frequently used terms are Yukno and Surto. It is found that he uses all these terms interchangeably and analogously to signify both the image of God and the image of man. And he employs the mutu to mean the likeness or resemblance of God in man. He makes a distinction between the image and likeness of God in man, and he speaks more on God's resemblance in man than of the image. He emphatically says that the image of God in man is the image of God the Father, and it is the essence and the totality of the personality of man. For him, the likeness of God in man, the resemblance of God in man, is much more than the belongings of the image. Contrary to many other views, Mar Jacob doesn't limit the application of the resemblance or likeness of God in man only to the divine powers that man possesses, like rationality, freedom of choice, lordship over other creatures, creative or procreative capacity, immortality, etc. Or to the gracious gifts of God, like body, soul, spirit, etc. But he never overlooks all these powers of the image, but considers them as belongings of the image. At the same time, he admires at the greatest of these characteristics of the image, and it is confirmed by several verses at various memorate, especially from the four memorate on creation. And all the quotations I have taken from the four memorate on creation. I quote, to substantiate his admiration for the powers of man, I quote from the four memorate. This is great, that man is powerful like God. He will lead the death and life which are placed in him. Second memorate, 289 verse. Freedom was also, again I quote, freedom was also granted to the rational vessel, so that he shall select death and life according to his will. And it is on account of this he is mortal or immortal. Again, second memory, verses 141 and 43. Again, I count his will life, the tongue creates everything. Second memory, verse 155. And creatures shall fear him and be obedient to him, for indeed he is his Lord. First memory, 2217. All these verses of Mar Jacob indicate a person behind all these powers who exercises them And now Jacob considers it the image of God in man. Now Jacob beautifully elucidates that the likeness of God in man is the resemblance of God's only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, who is incarnated. Among the many verses that say like this, I quote only a few among them. I quote, when the Father fashioned Adam, he fashioned him in the likeness of his Son, in the resemblance of his incarnation, he fashioned his image. In the image of the Son that came out to the world openly, he typified through it the head of the race when he created him. At heavenly Adam, who is Lord Jesus, the Father looked at, and in that resemblance he made Adam. First memory, verses 181 to 86. But Jacob affirms beyond any doubt the veracity of man's likeness as the resemblance of the Son of God, saying, from now onwards, when you hear the Father who says, let's make man in our image, you look at the Son who manifested himself. For Adam had the image of that majesty. But Jacob explains the rationale behind the intention of God in fashioning man in the likeness of his only begotten Son. As God is omniscient, and as the poet says in his memory, I quote, no new ideas are from God. First memory, 277. Again I quote, if you look well, it is not new with God. Unquote. First memory, verse 36, etc. The whole and the consequential redemption of man were already there in the mind of God before the creation of man. Hence, God the Father had already contemplated the role of the Son of God in the redemptive activity. That is why the poet underlines that God united himself with man organically. The word he uses there, gansonoid, organically. First memory, verse 73. According to Jacob, this biological union was intentional because at the fullness of the time, when the Son of God has to come to redeem the fallen man, he can come to his own and not to a stranger, by the reason that one exactly resembles the other. Moreover, the Son of God shall be willing at the time when it is required to suffer for the redemption of man. He should see that he suffers for and redeems not a foreigner, but he saves his own resemblance. The poet says, I quote, that was why when God created, he gave him his image so that he may not be reluctant to suffer for his man's sake. Unquote. It was pleasing to him. Hence, he did not renounce his image to be perished. Another quotation. Both from the first memory, verse 199 and 214. But Jacob imagines that the Son of God would not have suffered these passions if his resemblance had not been given to Adam at the time of creation. Hence the poet conceives God's words, let's make man in our image and likeness, as an invitation to the Son of God to look and recognize the oneness of the image between Adam and himself and to prepare for the redemption of Adam. Now Jacob beautifully explains another hidden agenda of God, its reciprocal nature. in granting Adam the likeness of the Son of God. Adam had to return his likeness to the Son of God when he incarnated in the world to redeem Adam. Thus the poet writes, quote, he gave him his image and set it upon him as a pledge to Adam so that Adam should give his image to the Son of God at the end. Unquote. First memory, verses 201 and 2. Besides making distinction between the image and likeness of God in man, Mark Jacob narrates the purpose of God while imparting his own image and likeness to him. These are some of them. Some of them are, through the creation of man in his own image and likeness, God revealed himself to the world. When the poet says, quote, the creatures shall see the image of the Lord in Adam, unquote, from first memory, verse 269, it means that invisible God becomes visible to the creatures through Adam. According to Mark Jacob, when Adam was created, the wisdom of God was revealed. To substantiate it, poet says many verses, and few among them are these. The image was so great that the wisdom of the most high could be seen through it. Fourth memory, verse 7. Again, I quote, his image declared how much wise is his fashioner. Unquote. Fourth memory, verse 9. Through this image, the Lord had manifested his wisdom. Fourth memory, verses 11, 53, 54, next. Another purpose of God behind the wonderful creation of Adam was to make him the Lord of the universe. For this, many verses are there. One among them is this. I go by his creator, he was made a God of flesh, Adam's bestow, for the creatures. Fourth memory, verse 3. Yet another reason for the granting of God's image to man, according to Mark Jacob, is to honor and bless the whole particles and parts of the created world through Adam. For this I quote from first memory, he gave his likeness so that the dust of Adam shall be honored by it or through it. Verse 188 and 271. And Adam should consecrate everything what he has without any change. For this purpose, he was granted the image and likeness of God. Creation of man in the image and likeness of God is the perfect creation of God according to Mark Jacob. Because the image in which man was created was the most beautiful, great, matchless and attractive in appearance. This unique comeliness of the image of man made it admirable and brought it to the forefront of all other creatures. I quote, looking at its greatness, the poet screams using all exclamation phrases. I quote, amazing, the word he used is tamihu. Amazing is creation, to fashion this image in such a manner. Marvelous, terror, is his history. I am amazed at it. Second memory, verses 287 and 88. Because the image of man in the human translation, because the image of man is the human translation of the Supreme Majesty. It was created by the most skillful artist who made it coherently and integrally, using all ingredients of the universe and instilled in it the essence of all beautiful things of the universe. That's why he is the most perfect and beautiful image. The verse says, I quote, the whole beauties of all creatures are engraved in him. Fourth memory, verse 33. Again I quote, it was made a grand beauty, which was infinite. Fourth memory, verse 104. According to Mar Jacob, it was this much of greatness, elegance and gorgeousness that made Satan envious and tremble at the sight of the image, and that was why Satan deceived Adam and Eve at Eden so as to destroy their image and kill them. Before I conclude, let me tell you again that in this presentation I have made only an overview of certain areas of the notion of God's image and likeness in man, developed by Mar Jacob of Sandhu, and hence definitely it is not comprehensive. Even then, I am thrilled to share with you that Mar Jacob's exegesis on this issue is one of the best in its kind. One thing is true, if the Syriac fathers like Mar Jacob of Sandhu were discovered, studied and explored properly, many of the controversial issues on faith would have easily been solved, and the history of the church would have been different. Thank you.